Imagine paying thousands of dollars for a ticket to fulfill the biggest dream of your life, to see a Formula One race. You see the best drivers in the world arrive. You feel the roar of the engines, and your excitement is at its peak. But just when the race is about to start, something leaves you in shock. There won't be a race. At least not the way you expected. What was expected to be an epic battle between Fernando Alonso, Kimi Raikkonen, and Michael Schumacher turned into a pathetic parade of just 6 cars around the Indianapolis circuit. How would you react, especially after learning this wasn't just a simple accident of fate?
Everyone who wears Michelin are coming back to their garages.
It's the strangest race.
But it was the result of absurd bureaucratic decisions by the organization, the greed of a racing team, and a catastrophic mistake by a tire supplier. All of this culminated in the greatest embarrassment in history. Over the years, Formula One has witnessed unforgettable scandals. But what they did to the 130,000 people who attended Indianapolis has no comparison and never will. So how could something so terrible happen? Could it have been avoided? Who were the real people responsible? Stay until the end, because today you'll discover how a combination of absurd decisions, unrestrained egos, and fatal mistakes turned Indianapolis into the most shameful day in Formula One history. To understand how the biggest disaster in Formula One history happened, we need to go back a few years. The United States Grand Prix returned to the calendar in 2000 at the iconic Indianapolis Motor Speedway. This track, full of history and tradition in American motorsport, promised great spectacles. This race used to be held in September, but for 2024, the calendar changed and the date was moved up to the summer, so it was run in higher temperatures. The Grand Prix that year was the first sign that something was wrong and that a disaster could happen at any moment. The 2004 edition was total chaos. Only 9 cars managed to cross the finish line, with a victory for Michael Schumacher and another 1-2 for Ferrari, something that had already become almost a habit that year. However, the Peraltada curve, the main attraction of Indianapolis, began to show its most dangerous side. The cars reached their top speed while going full throttle, but this curve couldn't handle it. The most shocking incidents of the race involved Fernando Alonso and Ralf Schumacher. First, Alonso's right rear tire exploded right at the end of the main straight, and this is what happened next.
Alonso escapes unharmed after going over, remains on the runway.
This caused the Spanish driver to lose control of his car and crash violently into the advertisements off the track. But the worst was yet to come. A few laps later, Ralf Schumacher suffered a chilling crash. His Williams lost control at a very high speed when the rear tire failed, coming out of turn 13. And this happened.
Ralf Schumacher hits hard the outer wall of the banked turn 13.
The single-seater spun sharply and crashed backwards into the wall as it slid, destroyed, down the main straight. The impact left the crowd and the teams in shock. Ralf couldn't get out of the car on his own, and the tension in the air was unbearable. Finally, the emergency services managed to get him out of his car and took him to a hospital. The German driver sustained a contusion and 2 minor spinal fractures, sidelining him from Formula One for 6 races. On the other hand, nowadays there is a single official tire supplier for all the cars on the grid. However, in 2004, that wasn't the case. Formula One had 2 suppliers, Michelin and Bridgestone, who were in constant and fierce competition to prove which one was superior. Interestingly, both Fernando Alonso and Ralf Schumacher were using Michelin tires. This should have already raised some concerns, right? Although some questioned the reliability of the Michelin tires, the most accepted explanation at that time, the accidents were caused by car debris scattered during an incident-filled race with many retirements. But whatever it was, what happened in 2004 was a clear omen of what was to come the following year. A year later, Formula One returned to Indianapolis, and although they didn't know it at the time, they were about to be part of the biggest scandal in its history. For the Grand Prix, the track was no longer the same. It had been resurfaced for the Indianapolis 500, which was held in May. And Firestone, the tire supplier in IndyCar, had warned about unusually high wear on that surface. Meanwhile, in Formula One, the war between tire suppliers was at its most critical point. Michelin supplied Honda, Renault, Williams, McLaren, Sauber, Red Bull, and Toyota. Bridgestone, on the other hand, supplied tires to only 3: Ferrari, Jordan, and Minardi. This fact, as we will see, was crucial. Additionally, the tire rules had changed significantly that year. Ferrari and Bridgestone had dominated in 2004, so much so that the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile decided to introduce a new rule to slow them down. The teams had to complete the entire race with a single set of tires and could only stop in the pits for refueling. The change worked. Ferrari lost competitiveness, and the teams using Michelin tires like Renault and McLaren moved to the front. But this same rule and Ferrari's desperation to get good results again were also crucial factors in what was about to happen. Ralf Schumacher's luck in Indianapolis was the same as the previous year. In the banked corner, his rear tire unexpectedly blew out and his car crashed violently into the wall at high speed.
Ralf Schumacher crashes into the wall at turn 13 due to another tire failure left rear.
But this wasn't an isolated case. His replacement, Ricardo Zonta, also suffered tire failures during the same session.
Ricardo Zonta's Toyota suffers a tire failure and spins off the track during Friday's practice.
Other cars equipped with Michelin started experiencing similar blowouts. The concern quickly increased and the French supplier identified the problem. The combination of resurfacing, the banking, and the high speeds in the banked corner created maximum stress on their tires. Michelin claimed their simulations considered the corner's banking, but no track tests were done, a crucial error. The tire supplier tried to bring emergency compounds to the circuit, but the problems persisted. Desperate after Friday's sessions, Pierre Dupasquier and Nick Schorek, representatives of Michelin, sent a letter to Charlie Whitten, director of the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile. They admitted that they could not guarantee the safety of their tires in turn 13, and that, without a reduction of speed in that area, it would not last more than 10 laps. Meanwhile, the teams with Bridgestone tires were not facing the same problems. The reason is that Bridgestone used data from Firestone, its American subsidiary, which had already tested the circuit after resurfacing. As I said at the start of the video, they chose harder tires, sacrificing some speed, but guaranteeing durability. Michelin, on the other hand, arrived without previous data and with compounds unable to withstand the demands of the circuit. Despite everything, Saturday's qualifying went on as normal. Jarno Trulli, with his Toyota, took pole position. But the tension kept rising and real chaos was about to break out. Michelin had already admitted that they couldn't guarantee their tires would last more than 10 laps. So, what was going to happen? How was the situation going to be handled where 70% of the grid depended on a supplier that couldn't guarantee the safety of their cars? Before answering these questions, subscribe! The situation looked terrible and it seemed like everything was heading toward disaster. Worry took over the teams using Michelin tires as time was running out. The executives of the French brand were desperate, and given the seriousness of the situation, they called an emergency meeting on Sunday morning to decide what to do about the race. On Sunday, June 19, 2005, at 10 in the morning, a crucial meeting was held. Tony George, president of the circuit, and representatives from Michelin were present. Bernie Ecclestone, the team principals of all the teams, and the Michelin representatives for each team. The only one who didn't attend was John Todd, director of Ferrari, the main team that would benefit from this situation. During this emergency meeting, various possibilities were discussed. Some proposals included limiting the speed at turn 13, making pit stops every 10 laps, or installing an improvised chicane before that turn. 9 out of the 10 teams accepted the chicane option. The only one that refused, obviously, was Ferrari. For their part, the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile also rejected this proposal, arguing that such a significant change to the track required rigorous testing and more time to ensure safety. Additionally, they mentioned that the state of Indiana could have taken legal action against the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile if something went wrong, further complicating the situation. Then a final alternative arose: to run the race as a non-championship event with the goal of putting on a show for the 130,000 fans who bought tickets and the millions more watching on television. But when the idea reached Max Mosley, the president of the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile, the response was firm. Mosley not only rejected the proposal, but also threatened to shut down all Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile. affiliated activities in North America if an unofficial race went ahead. His anger was such that this possible proposal was instantly dismissed. With no agreement on what should be done, the time for the race was getting closer and closer. Would the teams risk the safety of their drivers? Would the United States Grand Prix be canceled? Would the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile finally give in to any of the options? What happened next marked the beginning of the greatest embarrassment in the history of Formula One. The race was about to start, but there was no agreement.
Michelin teams will go out to the grid until there is a final decision.
So the tension was palpable throughout the circuit. With no solution in sight, Michelin made a drastic decision. They announced that the cars with their tires would not compete, claiming that they couldn't guarantee the drivers' safety. Finally, with no consensus among the teams, pressure from the drivers, and threats from the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile, the moment of the race arrived. The circuit was packed with excited fans, eager to enjoy the incredible spectacle of Formula One, without imagining what they were about to see. The cars lined up on the starting grid as required. Jarno Trulli, with his Toyota, led the formation lap row. It seemed the race would start normally, but that illusion quickly faded. When the cars went through the last corner, 14 of them entered the pits and withdrew from the competition in an extremely confusing and never-before-seen act.
All the cars with Michelin returned to their garages.
The mechanics from Renault, Toyota, McLaren, Honda, Williams, Sauber, and Red Bull were waiting for their cars to take them away even before the race began. The crowd in the stands couldn't believe what they were seeing, and the millions of viewers in front of their TVs were equally perplexed. On the main straight at Indianapolis, only 6 cars remained: 2 Ferrari, 2 Jordan, and 2 Minardi. And what did they have in common? None of them were using Michelin tires, but Bridgestone instead. That's how the race began.
It's the strangest race, and it begins now! Predictably, Michael Schumacher leads, followed by Rubens Barrichello. The 2 Jordans, they are having a battle with the Minardis.
The restart happened with only 6 cars and with a clear advantage for the 2 Ferraris over the 2 weakest teams on the grid. And what should have been a great show turned into a mockery. The outrage was total. The audience quickly went from astonishment to anger, so the boos, insults, and improvised signs flooded the stands. The discontent kept growing, and the cameras kept showing furious fans, demanding an end to such a tremendous humiliation for Formula One. The situation was so unusual that some spectators started throwing water bottles onto the track. Rubens Barrichello in his Ferrari had to dodge several objects and even ran over some of them. The confusion was total. Nobody understood what was happening. The level of embarrassment was such that some television stations like Telecinco decided to cut the broadcast as a form of protest.
This isn't a race. Actually, this is just 6 cars going around in circles. We don't want to bore you, so we'll stop here and continue later.
Meanwhile, thousands of furious fans left the circuit before 3 laps were completed and demanded refunds at the ticket booths. The police and security staff could barely contain the anger of the crowd. On the track, the Ferraris of Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello had a comfortable ride for 73 laps, completely ignoring the chaos happening around them. However, for the 2 Jordan drivers, Thiago Monteiro and Narayan Karthikeyan, this was the moment of their lives. The unique opportunity to step onto a Formula One podium was right in front of them. Finally, Monteiro managed to finish 3rd, behind the Ferraris, in what was Schumacher's return to victory, his only one of the year. The podium ceremony was as absurd as the race itself. The organizers told drivers there would be no national anthems or presentations, and that the trophies would be handed out hastily to avoid further booing. While Schumacher and Barrichello timidly raised their trophies, trying not to provoke more anger among the fans. Monteiro, who didn't care at all, was enthusiastically celebrating his first and only podium in Formula One, completely ignoring the tense atmosphere. His overflowing joy only increased the spectators' discontent. Indianapolis 2005 is the most embarrassing moment in Formula One history. But who was really responsible? the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile Race Organiseurs, Michelin, Ferrari, and identifying a culprit. What consequences would they have to face? Before answering these questions, if you've made it this far, it's because you're enjoying the video, so subscribe. So, who should pay for such a disaster and how would they do it? Even though he wasn't the only one involved, Michelin was singled out as the main culprit. The French brand failed by not conducting thorough tests or ensuring the safety of its tires, which resulted in one of the most humiliating chapters in motorsport. Michelin tried to redeem itself by refunding the ticket money to the fans, and by purchasing 20,000 tickets for next year's Grand Prix. But the damage was already done. Although the 2006 race managed to attract a decent crowd, interest quickly declined. Indianapolis ended its Formula One contract after 2007, and it took 5 years and a move to the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas, for Formula One to come back to the United States in 2012. The organization and the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile were not free from criticism either. Both made things harder by rejecting all solutions presented at the meeting before the race. Additionally, the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile's lack of flexibility with the rule that prohibited tire changes was an extra obstacle to reaching a solution. However, changing the layout of a track or removing rules from one day to the next was impossible under the regulations at the time. Ferrari, for his part, has been criticized for years for not supporting any of the proposed solutions. But even if they had done so, local laws would probably have prevented any changes. The reality is that Ferrari saw a unique opportunity to gain an advantage over his rivals, and did not hesitate to take it. While the 2005 incident in Indianapolis was shocking, it isn't the most incredible event in Formula One history. Over the years, Formula One has experienced truly impressive moments. Drivers fainting while pushing their car to the finish line, six-wheeled single-seaters, scandals where drivers crashed intentionally, and many more. So watch this video and discover the 50 most impressive fun facts about Formula One.